with Judge Jeanine.
We've accomplished an economic turnaround of historic proportions. When I came into office, 1.5 million fewer prime-age Americans were working than 8 years before. But we've turned it all around. Once again, we are the economic envy of the entire world.
That's President Trump talking about the incredible news about the economy on Friday. And a lot to talk about with my panel tonight, so let's get right to it and see what they think. NRA TV contributor, former aide to Chuck Schumer, and radio show host Chris Hahn join me live. Back up a second, it's former NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino and Chris Hahn. All right, Chris, how are you going to wiggle your way out of what the president said? That 1.5 million fewer prime-age Americans were working than 8 years before when he came into office.
Well, look, I'll give him some credit for the economy, maybe not as much as he's giving himself. He didn't inherit a mess. The economy has been on an upward trajectory for the last 10 years. And I do give him some credit for it. I also give credit to the fact that a lot of people were front-loading their exports, worrying about a potential trade war. And we'll see what happens. Don't forget, President Obama had 4 quarters that were better than this. And he created more jobs in the last 18 months of his presidency than President Trump has created in the first 18 months of him. And we'll see where we wind up. Quarterly growth does not necessarily equal a great end-of-year number. Obama learned that in 2014, where he had a 5.1% growth in the second quarter and then over 4% growth in the third quarter. He lost seats in the midterms, and they were at 2.9% at the end of the year.
It's all about sustainability, Chris, and Obama couldn't do it. But, Dan, what's your response to that?
Well, Chris is a little confused. President Trump did inherit a mess. The facts speak for themselves. Guys, this is a fact. I know Chris sometimes has a tough time with these things, but Barack Obama is the only president in United States history to never, in 2 terms, by the way, reach 3% GDP growth annually at any point in his presidency. Keep in mind, one-term presidents have done it. He's the only one ever. Cumulative GDP growth. He's also at the bottom. He's one of the top 5 worst economic presidents in American history. And by the way, because I know Chris is going to try to wiggle out of this one, he was wrong about the GDP numbers, Judge, on our debate 3 weeks ago. Barack Obama handed him a 1.9% growth rate in the final quarter and 1.6% the final year. Trump turned it around right away. He was wrong about it.
Did you call him up and tell him he was wrong, Dan?
I didn't want to bother him after the show. I thought he might be sleeping or having hot cocoa or something.
Go ahead, Chris.
I got to go get ice cream for my daughter after the show, but here's the deal. Here's the deal. My numbers are dead on for the second and third quarters of 2014.
So
and
you
what
admit
I'm saying
your errors.
is, let's not count our... No, hold on. Let's not count our 3% growth before it hatched. President Trump did not achieve that last year. He may not achieve it this year. 2.9% is almost 3%. Obama got 2.9%. I think President Trump's going to be between 2.9 and 3.1 this year. If he gets 3.1, I'll say hooray. But let's not count our chickens before they hatch, and let's not give all the credit to him. Obama did not leave him a mess. It was a booming economy. People were going back to work, and we've been on an upward trend for years.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, well, listen, that's just not true. Chris, he handed him a mess by any measure. Now, listen, I'll agree with you. I'll give you this. I don't give any president good or bad credit for the economy. I give it to the American entrepreneur. I think the president can do things to get the government out of the way. And I think that's what Donald Trump has done through the tax cuts and cleaning up the regulatory mess Barack Obama left us. But Barack Obama, Chris, it was a disaster by just about any metric. You know, labor force participation, wage growth. And by the way, the liberal talking point, which I'm surprised you didn't bring up, oh, well, wages aren't growing under Trump. That is not true.
That isn't
true. The Employment Cost Index, which is a proxy for it, Donald Trump, his first year, bested Barack Obama's 8 years.
Okay.
He has never reached those metrics on wage growth.
Wages.
Go ahead, Chris.
2.6.
There's a long way to go between here and the end. Look, there's a long way to go between here and the end.
Okay,
One thing we could say about President Obama
Guys,
is
I
that
have
the
a sore
economy
throat.
grew every
Hold
year
on, Chris.
him.
I can't yell tonight. I have a sore throat. Listen, here's the bottom line.
Thank
How
God.
many people, what, that I have a sore throat, or I'm getting to the bottom line?
No, that you can't yell at me. I want you to feel
Here's
better.
the bottom line. Thank you. Here's the bottom line. My mother just called me during the break. She said to me, Jeanine, you have to have some water. If the unemployment is the lowest it's been ever for African Americans, for minorities, we've got more jobs than people to fill them. You know what? You can talk GDP till the cows come home. That's what matters. A job and the ability to take care of your family. But I want to move on now. I want to talk about this tape. Well, Chris, do you want to answer? Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, just look, there's a lot of good and there's also a lot of caution. The deficit and the debt are growing dramatically under this president,
deficit has
and
been
that could lead
cut.
to problems long term.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, that's the trade deficit. That's the trade deficit, not the budget deficit. Those are different things.
Go ahead, Dan.
I give up. All right, don't tell me on a Saturday night I had to shave for this, and you're going to let him get away with it. Listen, for 8 years we had to deal with Barack Obama and record deficits. The media, the libs, Han probably celebrated. Oh, it's the greatest thing ever, debt and deficits. Now Donald, listen, I get it. Chris, I'm with you. Debt and deficits stink. Point stipulated. But please, spare us the nonsense about debt and deficit after
Obama
8 years
reduced
of
the
Barack
deficit
Obama's
every year after for his last 6 years. He reduced the budget deficit every year.
Well, folks, this is the scam he's pulling. Chris always has a scam. He came in office with the highest deficit, annual deficit in American history. Chris, if I owe $700,000 and make 50 grand a year, and then I pay down 25,000, this is not an accomplishment. That's what Obama did. He ran historic deficits every single year.
Dan.
Stop pretending otherwise.
All right, guys. I can tell you what I think, Chris Hahn, Dan Bongino. Thank you. Now, how did a former Attorney General make my list of the week's most outrageous statements? That's ahead. But next, more on the Trump-Cohen tapes. Alan Dershowitz joins me, and you don't want to miss him.
Sweat the details.
He